I think most people don't realize that we're born with the ability to release any upsets, whether it's cold, hunger, upset, pain, uh, and yet well-meaning people, supposing somebody is feeling sad, a child is sad, straight away when they're crying, the adult tries to stop them, thinking that when they're crying, they're hurting, whereas we're designed to release in that way that sadness. Or a child will get really, really angry, and it pushes their buttons because it reminds them of their anger and stuff, but they don't recognize that. But I've worked with people who have learned to allow children to express in any way and to ask questions, or allow the child more power than they normally have, or quite a space of time to really listen.
Most emotional reactions are not about the moment. They are old recordings playing on repeat. And after 50 years helping people just like you uncover inherited emotional patterns, Michael Brodribb has seen how buried fear, shame, and stress quietly shape relationships and confidence. And we're here to talk about it, clear up some of the bad stuff and solve some problems. So Michael is a co-author with Mr. Pat Mesiti in the book, The Freedom Blueprint. And Michael's chapter is Borrowed Pain, Recognize and Release Emotional Patterns. So if you feel really stuck, upset, in pain, stressed out, hopeless, and some of the usual techniques aren't working to getting you towards healing, you feel trapped, same fears and emotional loops, this might be the most important podcast interview you listen to. So Mr. Michael is here to help us out, set us straight. So Mr. Michael, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. Looking forward to this interview.
I am too. And what do you think I left out of that introduction? What are you all about?
I think most people don't realize that we're born with the ability to release any upsets, whether it's cold, hunger, upset, pain, and yet well-meaning people, supposing somebody is feeling sad, a child is sad, straight away when they're crying, the adult tries to stop them, thinking that when they're crying, they're hurting, whereas we're designed to release in that way that sadness. Or a child will get really, really angry, and it pushes their buttons because it reminds them of their anger and stuff, but they don't recognize that. But I've worked with people who have learned to allow children to express in any way and to ask questions, or allow the child more power than they normally have, or quite a space of time to really listen. But
Very good.
essentially, we're designed to release any upsets whatsoever. And those upsets, even though they weren't allowed as a child, they're still available at any age, just a little bit slower, because the pain and the upset is built up and built up and built up until it takes very little. Most people will understand about when they get their buttons pushed. They're not here. They're back in those incidents that were similar, and it's useless to talk to somebody in that state of being. So what I work with people so they stay longer and longer into a much higher state of being. When I have a new client, I always ask, if I had a magic wand, what would you like to achieve in this period of time? And take it from there. What would their goals be? And what's the problem?
And do people usually have a common answer, or do they have no idea?
Some have no idea. Some have some idea, but it's usually they're talking about the outcome, which is not the issue. This is just a final phase, or the current phase, whatever is upsetting them. So I ask them, well, why do you think you're really upset? What is the real reason you're upset? And some will say, no, I don't know, and some will say whatever answer comes to them, and it's never true. So then I ask them again, they'll eventually come up with something. And I encourage them to express that for a few minutes, and then ask them, what's the real reason? And it'll be a little stronger. And generally the third one, but maybe the fourth answer is the right one. So they're trying to handle this little issue on top, which can't work. It's not enough, and it's not the real reason. So once they hit the real reason, I often say to them, wow, I didn't even know that was there.
They had to dig deep with your help.
Yes, that's essentially what I do. But the other is I notice that most people in the session, when they start, they'll talk in a tone as though they're reading a story. There's no shift or energy. But after I've listened for a while and I learned to be a good listener, they will ask a question or their voice will go up or down. And I really listen for that. What is going on when they're talking about this change in the frequency?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think about that concept a lot, where I know if I get stuck or if someone I know has like the same old excuse, same old way of thinking, it's like they're caught in a loop, right? Telling the same old story. And so would you say when someone's telling that story and you say it's kind of the same, and then there's a little bit of a change in like the tone of voice or the speed, like what does that mean? Does that mean that that's where the story can be broken, or what do you do with that?
Yeah, that's where they're asking themselves a question. So I listen to when that goes 2 or 3 times. Usually around that time they'll say, I wonder why I feel this way. So they wouldn't ask it if they didn't on some level realize. So then I'll ask them, what's the answer to the question? And usually they'll laugh, which is laughing is a release of light, fear, and embarrassment.
Interesting.
So I encourage that. Or other, particularly women, will often laugh. And I say, if we really want to be productive in a rapid way, just keep laughing. And they say, oh, no, I can't without you make a joke. I said, it's not really true. Yes, you can. I remember a woman in Queensland. I didn't have much time, so we needed to move it along. And she laughed a little bit. And then I said, well, just keep laughing. No, I can't. Yes, I can. And then she laughed a bit. And I encouraged her. After a while, she was able to keep laughing. And she christened me the Laugh Gestapo.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting. So, and I'm thinking about what you just said. You said that laughter is a light release of fear and embarrassment, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a release of light, fear, and embarrassment. The release of heavy fear, which almost every man has got, is released by shaking and perspiring from a hot or a cold skin. That's something I'd like to add in there. I noticed in every single case that I've ever had, it's fear for men and anger for women because they're a no-no in society, so they never get support for that in normal way of processing for most people.
And do men have difficulty expressing this? Because I feel like sometimes as a man, it's like I have like 5 emotions, that's it, right? I might be tired, I might be hungry, might be angry, and like I'm struggling to think of anything else. And then women have all these like long flowery words, like I'm enraged, and they have like, you know, more words than men, it seems, to express themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because they've been trained not to for thousands of years.
And so does that mean, do you like have to kind of take different approaches, or like how do you break through to men and women?
Well, I work with whatever's available. Fairly soon somebody will talk. If they're talking non-repetitive talking, they're doing a whole lot. But there'll be some indicators. A lot of men, because their basic thing is fear, I'll notice where their eyes go. And often they'll look down somewhere and have a little laugh. So I say, don't look for too long. Oh, look at that. And they'll laugh. And I'll take it over for them and say, boo, and they'll laugh again.
Nice.
And occasionally I'll notice the muscle in their leg might start to tremble or their fingers start to tremble. And I just encourage them to have a false shake, and some are quite easily able to do that from that point on.
Nice. So you're breaking people's patterns, you're having conversations, you're asking questions, and maybe exploring some new spaces. And when you think about the common problems that people have, right? There's always worry about the future, the economy, etc. What are the fears that people keep coming to you with?
That they can't handle things. They've gone so far, and they'll often describe, "Oh, I feel blocked," or they'll have a particular description. And many people say, "Oh, it's a wall." Well, how close is that wall? Oh, it's not very close, about 10 feet, and how high and how wide and how thick. And they almost always have a description of that. I remember one guy, I said, "Well, just take another step towards it." And that made him feel a bit nervous. And he stayed with his nervousness, went a bit closer and a bit closer. And then I said, "Would you mind touching the wall?" So he touched the wall, and it fell over. And I said, "How do you feel?" He said, "Free."
Whoa. So is it safe to say that maybe people have these metaphors, or they imagine these physical problems, but they're only like half explored, right? It's like the monster in the dark closet. He says, "Well, I know there's a wall," but he hasn't even asked what you're asking, which is like, how wide is it? How tall is it? How heavy is it? He says, "I know there's a wall," but they haven't really explored it.
Yeah. So I'm lucky that I have many, many tools that one might not fit this person. So I'll try it for a minute or two. I won't persist if it doesn't go anywhere. I'll try another one. It's very obvious when something strikes a chord, because they'll look, or they'll brighten up, or they'll make an oh. And that's another process I often use. If they're going like that, I just do the same thing and they laugh.
Nice. Well, you make it seem really fun having the tools in the toolbox, right? You have different sizes, screwdrivers, wrenches, pens, rulers, and you say, "Let me just play around and see what works." And if something works, you say, "Hey, I'll start to figure out what's the collection of tools that we can use to perhaps solve the problem." And it makes me curious, like, how did you get to this point? What's your background? How did you develop all this?
I was a farmer, and I met this lady from the US that was a counselling teacher, and she described her family. The family weren't there. They was at a friend's house for dinner, and I got talking with her, and she said about her family, I thought, "I've heard some hot air in my time, but this would take the cake. No family is as good as that." Anyway, when I met them, they were better.
Nice.
And I hated school, but it ended up I went to her introductory lecture at the university here, sitting in the front right-hand seat, which I still can't believe I did it. And she said, "Would you care to come up, Michael? And I'm going to introduce everybody individually." And she said, so I stood up beside her, and she said, "Do you mind if I hold your hand?" And I was nearly dying. She said, "What's your name? What do you like about yourself, and what do you do well?" Well, I wish the floor would swallow me up. Anyway, I went to her 8-week course thinking that's all until I finish the course, I'm out of here. But within 6 weeks, I remember thinking to myself, if that'll do that for me, what will it do for other people? And that was 50 plus years ago, and it's been my passion and my interest, and I intend to learn every day and to profoundly help as many people as I can.
That's wonderful. They call it the ripple effect, don't they? That someone
Yeah.
touched you with their skill and greatness, and you say, "Hey, I'll pass this along to others and just do my part to maybe help them along a little bit better." And so, as far as people maybe helping themselves, right? Because they can't necessarily right at this instant be in front of you. So if someone says, "Okay, I'm hurting, I'm fearful, I have these problems," what are the perhaps as a technique that someone can try just with themselves and changing their own thinking?
Gee, that's an interesting question. The first thing that comes to my mind, I say particularly to couples, but anyone that maybe they're working or they're away during the day, at the end of that day to share what is new and good, at least 3 or 4. And then when they get used to that, what are the little upsets? So it changes the balance more quickly than I think you would think.
Yeah.
But there's also what I call a focusing technique, which I learned from Eugene Gendlin, and people can learn to release it from them for themselves.
Okay. So what's that focusing technique?
So if you had a challenge, say, and you mentioned it, as soon as you think of what's a problem, for instance, you'll have a physical feeling. And if you give it a name, say, oh, my chest feels tight and hot. So if a person says tight and hot whilst fully feeling that sensation, it will change quite rapidly. And then there'll be another feeling. Oh, okay, I feel a light tension just here. So they repeat that to themselves. And generally after the third or the fourth description, they'll say, I say, how do you feel? I feel a lot lighter. And what would be better than lighter? Oh, to feel light and peace. And they can allow themselves to fully feel that, and getting used to that, they can live more in that state no matter what comes along.
Very nice.
Which reminds me, as a child, I was heavily criticised with my dad. And I've worked on it and worked on anyone criticise me or look in a funny way at me, I'd think, what did I do wrong? And I did a session a while back, and a voice said to me, who do you think you are? And I had no reaction. That was the heaviest criticism put down I could have, and yet I had no reaction. Always been a problem. It isn't now. You could say, oh, you're an idiot, I hate your guts, and say, thank you. Or yeah.
Nice. So you still have the memory, it just doesn't have the emotional reaction, because you found this awareness. And then there's also that technique you mentioned about just discovering the gratitude of the day. And then if you say, well, maybe I'm being too positive, you kind of say, well, here's a few minor problems, but in the big picture, it wasn't so bad, was it?
No, it's all about being able to express it. I think what comes to mind, the greatest session I did, I've never met the woman, lives in Sydney, and she was found by a friend dying of anorexia. And I talked to her over about 3 or 4 sessions in a week, and within a week she was eating again, just up and about and working again within 6 months, probably shorter than that, I don't recall. And another woman came to me, what do they call it when somebody has a very high and a very low mood swing?
Like bipolar?
Yeah. And she came for something else, and she didn't tell me she had bipolar, but she did 2 sessions, and I rang her up about a month later to see how it was going. She said, oh, it was bipolar when I came to see you, and it's gone. Don't have it anymore. So
that must feel good for everyone involved, right? You help them, and it also gives you that good feeling helping others. And I'm enjoying your storytelling style, right? You're not just educating us, you're kind of taking us around in points in time and relationships that you've had as a kid and as an adult, and with teachers and with patients. It's great to hear about. And because you are the star of the show today, Mr. Michael Brodribb, I want to make sure that in these final moments, we talk about what's important to you. So in this conversation we're having, do you think there might be a missing question that I should be asking you? I just don't know to ask you.
Gosh, at the moment I can't really think of. Oh, yeah. I think it came up somewhere in the blurb beforehand. What makes me stand out from other practitioners? I don't work to time.
Okay.
I've been to lots of people, and they say, 55 minutes, that's your time. Your time's up. Whereas I find with people I work with, they're not like a machine. they're probably just about to a breakthrough, and it might take another 10 or 15 minutes. What a shame to chop it off. I'm glad I'm not in that position. I don't have to do that, and I never will.
That's amazing.
The doctor said this man would never work again for the rest of his life. And I did a 12-hour straight session. I wouldn't do it now, but I was a lot younger then.
Whoa.
And he not only went back to work, he opened his own business. And
Whoa.
the oldest doctor said, "Are there any books on the subject?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I'd like to read them, but my training won't allow me to believe it." And yet the evidence was there in front of him. Can you believe it?
I mean, 12 hours, that's craziness. But you say it takes as long as it takes, right? And why stop the clock right before the breakthrough?
Yeah, so he was a friend. I had other reasons to help. But it was a hard time because I was also working with another woman who was suicidal, and keeping her alive they had to really, really dig deep. But I learned
But you made it work.
Well, I can make things a lot quicker now, and that's my goal.
Well, nice. You're providing a needed service, because it's a shame when our emotions get the best of us, and some people, like, they're born with many issues. They get stuck in bad habits, bad patterns, and it's definitely worth it to explore possibilities to get unstuck and to break out of the loops. And so I'd like to discuss some next steps here. We have the website, which is michaelbrodribb.com. That's BRODRIBB.com. And then a phone number, country code 61-427-296-349. So that's 61-427-296-349. And if someone says, "This guy, Michael Brodribb, he's speaking my language, he's reading my journal, and I want to find out more about him," what are some next steps here? How can someone reach out to you, and what would they be reaching out for?
Well, it could be all sorts of things. If they hear what I say or read what I said and it has meaning for them, then they either call me or email me on mbrodribb7@gmail.com. And I work on Zoom, I work on the phone, I work on face-to-face, whatever suits the person. I've had thousands of hours on the phone, so I can really hear the finest nuance.
You have training. You're a good listener, as you said.
Yeah,
well, that's wonderful.
When I started out, we sat on a chair opposite the client, on the practice client, held their hands, paid total attention to their face for an hour. And I would notice that their eyebrows twitched.
That's always my fear. When I talk to a psychological professional, I'm like, am I crossing my arms the right way? Is one eyebrow doing something, or cheeks? I'm so nervous that the micro expressions will give me away. But as you say, you're trained. You notice all of those in what's it called, like the bodily communications, right? That's so much is expressed through those little nuances is what we speak, but the nonverbal sure as heck says quite a bit more, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, nice. So you're saying that if someone needs some of this emotional help, if they have the fears, worries, frustrations, they're having trouble with letting go, and they want to live life, and they just need to get some of these things unblocked, then that next step, that website, is michaelbrodribb.com. And there you can find his phone number, contact form, email address, which we said is mbrodribb7@gmail.com. And you can find out about the book he has co-authored with Pat Mesiti at freedomblueprintbook.com. And his chapter in that book is called Borrowed Pain, Recognize and Release Emotional Patterns. And that's Michael Brodribb. And before I let you go, Mr. Michael, it's time for the scary part of the podcast where I try to stump you. I try to put you on the spot by asking about an interesting quote that has served you. And my understanding that we have two for the price of one, right? Two quotes to help us along, don't we?
Yeah. The first one is, we are never upset for the reason we think we are. And the second one is healing is not a function of time.
Interesting. And what's that second one mean?
It doesn't necessarily, no matter how bad a person is, it doesn't mean that it's going to take a long time to get better.
Ooh.
No matter how upset somebody is, if they are willing and they can see the point, they can clear a whole lot very, very quickly.
Yeah, just need some new help, new person,
Yeah.
new techniques.
Yeah, so they can always get in touch with me and see if I'm a fit for them.
Very good. And they should get in touch. If nothing else, just start that conversation at michaelbrodribb.com. And we've been talking about how to navigate this crazy thing called life. And he's helped so many people. You've heard about how he provides these consultations to get your head on straight, to get the emotional baggage patterns unblocked. So michaelbrodribb.com is where you should go. Schedule that free consultation, explore how you can work together. And thank you, Mr. Michael, for showing up, stopping by, and just sharing with us some amazing stories, ideas, and techniques to feel better about ourselves and just be better, happier people. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. As you can see, it's my passion in life. That's what I live for.